Hey guys, back again with some Modern on Budget. Today we're talking about some Seismic Swans. Seismic Swans is a really funny old deck, and hopefully today with some newer cards, it can make a comeback, and even on a budget. Now, Swans of Argyle, Burn Argyle says if a source would deal damage to Swans of Burn Argyle, prevent that damage, and its source draws cards equal to the damage prevented this way. So what that's going to do is it's going to, let's say someone casts Lightning Bolt targeting it. It prevents the damage and they draw 3 cards. Now, what we're going to do with that is we're going to have Seismic Assault. Discard a land card and Seismic Assault deals 2 damage to any target. Now, we're running 42 lands. So our idea here is to discard a land to deal 2 damage to Swans, to draw 2 cards, to discard them to deal 4 damage, to draw 4 cards, and keep scaling up as we do it. And eventually we'll have enough cards in our hand where we can just discard them and kill our opponent. So we also have Molten Vortex, which is a smaller version of it, and it's not as good because it requires us to pay mana each time, but it is nice to have that early game in case we don't hit our Seismic Assault. But also it gives us some early removal because removal on turn 3 is pretty late, so Molten Vortex gives us that early game. Another fun thing we can do is Treasure Hunt. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card, then put all cards revealed this way into your hand. So this is going to allow us to kind of just draw a quarter of our deck, half of our deck, and we're going to be able to give our Swans a lot of fuel, maybe even find our combo if we're still trying to find it. And so for that reason, it's in here. It's not a deck entirely of lands, but 42 lands is a lot. It also allows us to dig through those lands and find our combo. That way we can feel better about just keeping a hand of one Seismic Assault or one Swans. That way we can feel better about like, oh, we can just search it out or do something with Treasure Hunt. Now, either with Treasure Hunt, we either hit Swans or we hit one of our 2 combo pieces. Now, if we have one of these 2 pieces, Molten Vortex might not go infinite, but it does allow us to do enough where we will find normal Seismic Assault. Next up is the only other things we could hit with Treasure Hunt are Treasure Hunt, for example. Days Undoing. Each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into his or her library, then draw 7 cards. If it's your turn, end the turn. So what this is going to do is it's going to refill our deck if we didn't quite get there with our Swans, but also we can use this to just search out our combo even, because if we have a Swan out or a Seismic Assault out and we still need the other one, we'll use Treasure Hunt or this, which is a wheel. It does mess with your opponent too, though, but it just gives us a little bit more of some filtering. Or we even hit Throes of Chaos, which is a 4-mana Cascade with Retrace. So Retrace says you may cast this from your graveyard by discarding land in addition to its other types. So we have 42 of those in here, and so we're probably going to be bringing it back if we need to. We're going to be able to, at least. We also have Days Undoing, which will make it, it's a possibility of hitting it off of Throes of Chaos, but it's a one of in compared to everything else. But if we do hit it off of Days Undoing off of Throes of Chaos, we won't be able to recast it because it'll be shuffled into our deck. That's not the worst thing though, because we'll draw 7 new cards. Next up, that's it for the non-land portion of the deck. It's really simple. Swans, Assault or Vortex, and go from there. Just try to win from there. If you can land an assault on turn 3 and then Swan on turn 4, you win the game, assuming your opponent doesn't have removal. Now, turn 4 wins aren't quite fast enough in our current metagame, especially if Trickery stays unbanned. But I feel like this deck is still going to have a lot of weight. I think having that Swan, having Vortex, having Treasure Hunt even to go search out our combo, I think it's going to be very powerful, and I think it is definitely worth running. Anyway, we are staying budget with $93 in paper and $25 online. Our mana base is what I want to talk about next, and then the sideboard. Our mana base runs a bit of utility, but mostly mana fixing, because we can actually do it on a budget in this deck. Blast Zone. It's a way for us to hit 1-drops, 2-drops, any deck that runs a lot of a single quantity of a single value of mana cost. Any deck that does that, we can just bump up those counters and then wipe their entire board. So it's only in here as a 1-of though, because we don't want to limit how much our deck can actually function on its own mana. And I know we are running 42 lands, but we're running other utility lands as well. Usually the Molten Vortex and Seismic Assaults are enough to deal with threats. Blast Zone is just something to wipe something like Hammer Time. Bojika Bog is mainboard, graveyard hate, and it's a land. So if it's not relevant, you can keep it in your hand and discard it away. My original list of this deck ran Tormod's Crypt in its place, and I realized, you know what, if I just make like a few edits to the mana base, I can easily fit Bojika Bog in, and it would just be better. So we also have Cascade Bluffs, just to really make sure that we can cast our spells, because we have a triple red and we do have that double blue, and I just want to make sure that we can cast it. We want to cast our combos. Forgotten Cave has a little bit of extra utility while staying in colors, same with Lonely Sandbar. And then we have 5 islands. You'll see that we have 2 sandbars but 4 caves. The reason why is because we actually went split 2 and 2 with Mystic Sanctuary. Because if we cast Treasure Hunt and then have Mystic Sanctuary off of what we get, we can actually play Sanctuary and possibly get our Treasure Hunt back. And that's going to allow us to cast it again and do even more. We also have the ability. I was surprised how many duels we could run on a budget. We actually have the Pathways as a 4-of, the Shivan Reefs as a 4-of, Temple Epiphany as a 4-of, and Wandering Fumarole as a 4-of. Those are a lot of dual lands. So I could honestly see you going some more utility, but I think it's more important to stay focused to our main goal, which is Swans and Assault, because that triple red, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's not horrible to cast, but it is still hard, and so it's going to allow us to cast it, and I don't want to get caught out and not be able to cast our combo even if we have it. Next up is our sideboard, where we have 2 Bojika Bog in case we need to bring it in against graveyard decks. We have 1 Lightning Bolt. Usually we'll be able to search it out and we'll be able to just deal with a pesky creature, or maybe we even end up using it, or a Planeswalker, and maybe at some point we end up just using it to draw 3 cards. Next up is Shattering Spree. It is Artifact Hate. Spell Pierce is Control Combo Hate. Stubborn Denial is Control Hate. I would say Combo Hate, but combos are so fast that you won't have Swans out by the time that they do it. Then you have Tectonic Reformation, just to add a little more use out of your lands. if you need it. Then we have Anger of Gods. Anger of the Gods for some extra removal if they go way too wide, way too quickly. And the remaining 2 cards in our sideboard are alternate win conditions, and I love it so much. We have Sphinx's Tutelage, so every card that we draw will make our opponent mill 2 cards, and if they're non-land cards that share a color, then they repeat the process. If it's colorless or if one of them's land, then it won't matter. It just goes 2 cards. But that allows us to discard one of our lands, to deal 2 damage to Swan, to draw 2 cards, to mill them at least 4, and then we repeat that process every time. So it's another way we can win. And the third way we can win is actually a newer card, which is why I was super excited to bring this deck back, is when Thassa's Oracle enters the battlefield, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. Put up to 1 of them on top of your library and the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game. Now, in a deck where we draw our entire deck, that sounds pretty dang good. Anyway, that's going to be another way we can win. And so, usually, if you win game 1 with Swans, usually you can take out the 2 Vortex, or you could even take out 2 Assaults to keep in that early game removal. And you will end up bringing in a Sphinx's Tutelage or a Thassa's Oracle, just so that you can make sure that you have an alternate way of winning. And I really enjoy this list. I do test all of these decks out before I show them to you guys, and this one was pretty sweet. No, people were like, "Wait, that's a thing? That's still a thing?" Some people recognize the deck. Some people are so thrown off by it. It's a really sweet list. Anyway, if you liked it, let me know below. If you didn't, also let me know below. Please make sure that you are being respectful. And if you liked it, give me a thumbs up. I will see you next time.